We're talking all things cats and kittens on this episode of the Paw Report. Dr. Sally Foote from the Okaw Vet Clinic in Tuscola and her pal Ranger will join us. Thinking about bringing a kitten into your family? Dr. Foote will talk about making the transition an easy one. Plus, when those kittens become cats, they may encounter a few health problems. More on that coming up, so stay with us. The Paw Report starts now. Production for the Paw Report is made possible by Inyurt Tire and Auto Center in Charleston and Mattoon. Inyurt offers complete auto repair. Inyurt Tire and Auto Center cares about our community and thanks you for being a responsible pet owner. More information at inyurt.com. And Dr. Sally Foote from the Okaw Vet Clinic joins us today for the Paw Report, along with her buddy Ranger. And as you might have guessed, we are going to talk all things cats and kittens on this program. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Ranger, for coming. If you can't see him at home, he's got his Paw Report shirt on. He's a true fan. So thank you both for joining us. Let's start with kittens. You know, there may be some viewers out there thinking about getting a kitten. Maybe they just got a new kitten. And there are a lot of things that you need to consider when you're bringing that new kitty into your home. And,
Sure.
And let's talk about that. What are some of the things that folks should think about? There's a lot of acclimation that goes on.
Yeah, the first thing to think about is having a litter box that's the right size for a kitten. Most kittens are going to be, weaned or taken into a home somewhere between 7 to 8 weeks of age. Some as young as 6 weeks of age, especially if something happened to the mother. But it's best to wait until the kitten is about 7 weeks of age before taking them away from mom and having them in the home. And in that case, many of our commercial litter boxes may be about this tall. They're about 7 inches deep, which is nice for the adult cat, but for a little kitten, it can be hard for them to climb in. So for a kitten, I often recommend to my clients to get like a disposable 13x9 pan and put the litter in that as a first litter box for that kitten, period, because it's really important for the kitten to learn to use a litter box regularly. They've kind of already learned from mom using some kind of a litter box, but it's got to be easy for the kitten to get in and out of. So having a litter box, having it in an area for the kitty that is not disturbed. It's not in a high traffic area. A lot of people may use like a utility room or maybe even in their own bathroom, so it's not too exposed, but where they're not in the central hallway, or that. And then secondly, make sure you're cleaning the litter box out every day. Get yourself in the habit of it, and that's what's going to keep your cat happy with using that litter box. And and then they have a much better time about that. So litter box, that's the first issue. The second one is kittens are very playful, very curious, and like to get into things around the house. So really important to keep up any kind of dental floss, any kind of string, any kind of thread, any kind of yarn. So all you sewers out there, make sure when you're done with your sewing machine, completely put away your machine and the thread and your sewing basket in a closet with the door shut. People who fish, I've had kittens and cats get into the fish hook on the fishing line or get in the fishing line because it's like, of course it smells like fish and that's very appealing. But for a cat, once they start playing with something stringy and they get it in their mouth, they want to swallow it down, and that can lead to a serious problem. And then lastly, we humans need to take the time to actually play with our kittens. That you take like a ball and toss it across the floor and make them run after that ball, or like a feather toy on a stick and get them to play and chase and want to pounce and grab it. It's very normal for kittens to do a lot of called predatory play, like they're pretending to kill something. And to be a happy cat, they need to kill something every day. And so this gets their energy out, so they're not knocking everything off the dresser and being as, kind of bothersome to you as a kitten.
Now, what about, going back to the litter box, do you just place them in the box? You said that their mother kind of assists them in helping them naturally get that, but should you take their little paws and maybe help them along in the process, or is that a natural instinct for them?
It is good. The best thing to do really is to show them where the box is, put them in the box. They may just stand there and do nothing, and that's okay. And when they're in there, if you can give them a small treat, like something like a little Temptations, actually give them a reward in the litter box. Then they associate, oh, litter box is a good place. I want to kind of get in here. I want to hang out here, you know. If they've used the litter, don't disturb them. Wait till they're completely done. You know, they got to go through all their motions of, you know, digging a little spot and then covering it up, etc. And when they step out of it, tell them they're a good kitty and give them a reward there. Or you can just drop a little food kibble on the floor near the litter box as like a reward for them. But then, of course, scoop it out and keep it clean. You know, that is one thing. A lot of times when we have litter box troubles with our cats, oftentimes we're going to find that we are not cleaning the litter box on a daily basis, and that's a part of why the cat is objecting, you know, to that box. So if you get in the habit of it, and keeps the kitten happy.
What about introducing the kitten to different areas of your home and also to your family members? Because you know, that's a strange environment for them, and kind of a culture shock.
Yeah.
So there must be some sort of process to that.
Yeah, thank you for asking me that, because a lot of times people aren't told what to do, and then again, that's where we can get into a little bit of difficulty, you know, for the kitty, especially a kitten. So cats, how they say, oh, this is my home and this is how I like it, is they need to rub up against it every day. And kitties have, you see Ranger, he doesn't have as much fur here above his eyes, and on the little chin there, yes, and even on the paws of their feet. These are where their scent glands are, and it's called pheromones. The cat's facial pheromones are in there. And so when a cat comes up and like rubs against a chair like this or rubs against you, that's the cat's way of saying, oh, you're mine, I like you, I know you, and you're mine. And kittens will do this. Well, if the kitten has the whole house to try to do, they get overwhelmed.
Right.
So one room at a time. Maybe start them off in a bedroom and put their litter box or food and water in there. They have a couple days in there, they'll get the whole room rubbed up. Then after another day or two, you can let them out, say in the hallway or maybe the living area, and give them some time in there, and you know, then put them back up in the bedroom, and then a couple days later, maybe like the living room and the dining room area. And again, when they're going in these other areas, you can like toss their food nuggets as a game, so that way it gets them to venture into these spaces and get rewarded, and encourage them, you know, to rub up. Another product, if your kitty or your kitten seems to be really kind of shy or kind of overwhelmed about the house, there is a feline pheromone product. It's under the trade name of Feliway. And this is what you can spray around the house. So to the cat, they feel like the house is already marked. And it helps them to feel like, oh, okay, I've been here. I don't have to run around the house and try to mark it all up at once. So that helps them too.
Now, what about to children?
Okay.
A family that has little kids, and again, they're very excited, and new pet's been brought into the family. There's probably some guidelines that they need to follow too.
Right. So, of course, we need to teach both the child and the pet how to tolerate, because you know, kids are going to be active, and the cat does need to learn how to tolerate that. And how the cat learns that is, again, by getting a reward around the kids when they're laughing really loud or they go running around the house and things like that. The second thing, for cats especially, we want to provide them perches that the cat can easily hop up and get out of the kid's way, because that's how the cat feels safe and feels good. So say like these shelves you have back here, if it was in my home, I would remove maybe, you know, 2/3 of what's on the lower shelf to make it easy for my cat to hop up there and say get out of the way of a toddler or a young child. But then we can also do other things, like for the children, especially if we have a child under the age of 7, I tell all my parents he can play with the kitten or sit, but he's got to be sitting on the floor. This way, if the child picks up the kitten and the kitten gets startled and might scratch the child, or you know, cling, and the child goes and wants to drop the kitten, it's not going to fall far, it's not going to get hurt, as compared to walking around the house holding the kitten, and if the kitten gets startled, it's natural for the cat to possibly scratch or want to jump out of the arms, and then that's a big jump and the kitten could get hurt. When it comes to petting a cat, most all cats like to be petted from the head, behind the ears, and down to about here. Not all cats like full body stroking, some do. And with cats, it's really best recommended when you're petting them, and you can teach your kids this, we're going to pet 3 times, then we're going to stop. And we're going to wait for him to butt his head into us or rub up against us, because that's the cat's way of saying, oh, do that again, I really like it. And then you pet him again. Some cats, if you pet them 2 or 3 times and then you pet a little more, now they're getting kind of like itchy in the skin and they want to jump up, and they may turn around and scratch and bite. They get a little overworked up. So this is a good way to teach your kids to pet. Just pet 2 or 3 times and wait for the cat to ask for more. If the cat doesn't ask for more, then go get the flashlight, go get the kitty, feather toy, go get the ball and play with the kitty.
Now, a new cat comes into, let's say, my home, and I have dogs. There's probably going to be a little tension between new kitty and the canines in the household. So, tips for acclimating a new kitten to the other household mates.
Right. First off is you want to make sure that the cat's food and the cat's litter box and the cat's bed is like out of a way that the dogs can't get into it literally, sticking their nose into it, or getting into it. So we're going to want to have the cat fed up on a counter or some kind of a table or a shelf. Because if you have the cat's food on the floor, the dogs are going to eat it up. And actually what we found now is cats like to hunt for their food. So the best way to feed any cat, dogs or not, but especially with dogs, is just get those small little sort of like dipping sauce dishes, that hold maybe 2 ounces in them. Or little saucers, and you'll put just a tablespoon or 2, and you're going to put it like that up on that bookshelf shelf. You might put it, you're going to kind of hide it around the house in different places, and again, up where the dogs won't get into it. But this will get the cat to, and not only investigate around the house, but learn how, if I hop up here, hey, the dog can't get to me if he's being a little too nosy, or panting on me or whatever, and I'm safe and I'm fine, so I'm not afraid of the dog. Now, the litter box needs to be like behind a baby gate. Dogs think litter boxes are treats. Every dog I've ever met. Yes, even if they've never been around a cat, there's just something about that litter box that's delectable to a doggy.
Sure.
And so we want to keep the dogs out of it, but so the cat needs to be, have their privacy, not be disturbed when they're using the litter box again, or else we have litter box trouble.
That's right.
So with the baby gate, the cat can hop over the gate, get to the box. Dog can't get to them. You can still take care of the box and everybody's okay. Some people will have a covered litter box. But if you have a covered litter box, you need to put the hole, the entry, put it where it's only maybe 6 or 8 inches away from a wall. Because I've seen dogs that will stick their head in the covered litter box and then get stuck. So I guess
that's quite the picture.
You had no idea we talk about this today, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that if you don't have a baby gator, that's kind of difficult to set up in the home. A covered litter box is a good solution, yet you have to make it where the dog still can't get into the covered litter box, that way. Now then, when we're out and about, say like this was your living room at home, and you've got your kitty on your lap, and now your dog comes up, what we want to do is teach the dog to sit and give the dog a reward so that he can be calm around the cat. And if he sniffs the kitty, that's fine. So we'll let him sniff a little bit at kitten, and then we're going to reward the dog for not really sniffing and globbing all over the cat and that. And then when the cat's sitting there calm, we'll give the kitten a little reward. Now when the kitten goes running across the floor, and if the dog just kind of follows a bit, we'll praise the dog because the dog's not chasing the kitten. And you'll get dogs and cats then who really learn how to play with each other. And because they kind of learn each other's sort of rules, and how do I move and where do you go and that kind of thing.
Eventually, kittens turn into cats.
Yes.
And I thought it was interesting, you mentioned before we went on the air here that while the cat population is increasing, you're not seeing a lot of an increase in numbers in your office. Why don't you talk about that? And then we're going to talk about some of the top health issues that cat owners might experience in their lifetime with a cat in their home. But first, I'll let you address the issue of not seeing as many cats come through your office.
People love their cats. They do love their cats just like they love their dogs or their birds. So it's not really a concern that, people just don't care as much about them. I think part of the difficulty is, number one, we don't have laws that require us to have to bring the cat into the vet as frequently. Think about it. There's almost basically all the states have laws that require that our dogs, say, get a rabies vaccination at a very minimum. So that right away helps the dog owner to come in for a examination, at least that vaccination, and then that gives us an opportunity to educate that dog owner on things like heartworm disease and intestinal parasites and fleas and ticks and other, vaccines, et cetera, that their dog needs. So we don't have a law requiring the cats to come in. So there's one thing that's a little bit less on why should I have to bring my cat in. Second of all, many cats are indoor only. So many people think, well, he doesn't get exposed to anything. What does he need vaccinations? Or he has vaccinations when he was spayed and neutered when does he need a booster, in 5 or 10 years, you know? And so there isn't as much contact with, say, a veterinarian or a veterinary office, you know, to know or to learn more. One other thing that can sometimes be a bit of an influence as well is many people might get a cat by a cat has just strayed up to their door and they start feeding them, and now I've got a cat, and if they're already neutered, there they go. You know, there's really not much of a perceived need to bring them in. So we may be seeing now more kind of advertising and more public promotion about the health needs of cats, because yes, cat ownership is actually higher than dog ownership, just talking about dogs and cats in the United States. And that we do need to see our cats on somewhat of a regular basis when they're young and kind of mature, even at least every couple years for a health checkup and that. And then when they get older, more frequent checkups help them to live a longer and a healthier life.
Some of the health problems that cats encounter, some of the things that I read, one of the probably the most popular, and you can address this, is urinary tract infections, among other things. But I'll let you talk about some of the top maybe health issues that you see come through your office specifically with cats.
Well, I think a good way to talk about this is kind of their life stage or their age. And then what do we see at this age? Because it'll change a bit, you know, as they go along in life. So with kittens, young cats especially, with kittens, very common that we may have parasites. We may have intestinal worms because maybe the mother cat, you know, may have been carrying them. There are some that are directly transferred to the kitten. And so you want to make sure that they've been checked up and warmed a couple of times. One-time warming isn't enough. And especially in a young cat, we want to do a blood test to screen for feline leukemia virus and feline AIDS virus. These are two deadly viruses that cats can carry and look healthy, but then later on in life, by age 5 or even 10 years of age, they may have cancers and other problems come up. And those diseases are infectious to other cats. So let's say you're bringing a cat in your home and you already have an existing cat. You want to get that cat tested and screened for feline leukemia virus or feline AIDS, feline immunodeficiency virus. So those are kind of the main, and you know, getting their initial vaccinations done. So those are the main things in the youth or the kitten kind of age. In the middle-aged cat, like, you know, ages from 2 to about 8 or 9, not too much to really be concerned about. Maybe we might see an occasional, you know, skin problem or an accident if people let their pets out, but dental care is important. So you want to keep them up on, you know, a lot of our diets and foods now have some dental crystals added to the diet. That does help to decrease tartar, but using like a water additive or talking to your veterinarian about, you know, how to brush your cat's teeth and keeping their teeth healthy.
Will they let you?
They will. We don't use a big toothbrush. We usually use a Q-tip. And that works well for a lot of cats. And, you know, just making sure they're in good general health. Now, when a cat reaches about age 8, it's kind of like being about 45 for a human, that's when we can start to see some of the middle age or aging, you know, health conditions starting to show up. And it's good to catch those then and not waiting till they're a bigger problem when they're an older cat. So some of the leading health concerns of cats as they're getting, you know, from age 8 on upward is, one is hyperthyroidism. Their thyroid gland is overactive. We can see this problem in the cat. It's because of a non-cancerous tumor on the thyroid gland that causes their metabolism to increase. And so they may be eating a bit more, not gaining weight, losing weight possibly. You may see changes in their stool, like getting soft or vomiting. And that comes on kind of slowly, and then, you know, over 1 year to the next, the signs will increase. So if you can catch it earlier when maybe there's just been like a half a pound of weight loss, that you could do a screening test for that. So hyperthyroidism is a concern. Feline urinary tract infection, or just urinary health. How healthy is their urinary system? Because the kidneys in a cat are designed to make a very concentrated urine. These guys were desert animals when they were wild. And so that's kind of, if you want to think of a little bit of their weak system. So we oftentimes will do some initial just kind of screening blood work to see how well their kidney function is, or maybe a urine analysis at that age, and then we know what's their normal. And then lastly, in the aging cat, we're also starting to recognize better arthritis as affecting the older, I'll say middle-aged to older cat, so they become less active and then they get obese. And a lot of people don't really recognize what a proper weight cat looks like. Actually, little Ranger here is on a diet. He gained about a pound over the winter.
Oh, geez.
And while 11 pounds, and a pound doesn't sound like much, his normal weight should be about 10 pounds, so he's gained 10%. Now that's significant. You know, if we went to Weight Watchers, we'd get a little award, you know, for losing 10% of our body weight. But keeping them more lean will help to minimize, you know, some of the pain they may feel from early arthritis. And where most cats get the arthritis is right down here in the lumbar vertebrae or in the elbow. So again, if they're hurting here, they're not going to jump up to that perch as easily. They're not going to play as easily, so they don't burn the calories off, and then they can start to get overweight. And what we can see with some overweight cats is diabetes.
Do you see a lot of problems with heartworm and fleas? Is that an issue too? You know, we talk a lot about that with dogs.
Dogs, right, but yes, we do see it with cats. Now, how it differs a little bit is that cats do get heartworm disease. And we don't talk about it as much because they're not as much of the natural host as the dog is. So the rates of heartworm are not as high. But the really bad thing about heartworm in the cat, it's very difficult to detect because the tests that you run to look for the chemical from the adult worm in the heart, you need to have sometimes as many as 3 female worms in the heart for the test to pick it up. But a cat with heartworm disease may usually only have like 2 worms in the heart, maybe 3 at the most. And if one's a male, your test will miss it. And then the cats usually do not develop the bloodstream stage, so the other test to look for it may miss it. But when a cat has heartworm disease, what happens is the portion of the heartworm can break off and cause serious lung and pulmonary disease. And then actually some may just die suddenly, like a stroke. And and it's very devastating. You may have somebody going, oh my goodness, my 5-year-old cat was fine. He jumped up on the perch and he just expired. What happened?
Oh, wow.
And that can be because of feline heartworm disease. So we recommend for all our cats, indoors and outdoors, because mosquitoes get in your house, is that the cats be on a heartworm preventative. And there is one that combines actually heartworm prevention with flea and tick control. There's a couple good ones on the market, and it's a topical. And we recommend that one a lot for clients. Yes, cats, even a house cat can get fleas, or fleas can get going in the house, because the flea can hop on you, you know, when you come in from outside. And then they're going to pick the easiest little warm mammal to start biting and sucking their blood and laying the flea eggs, and that's going to be your cat, because he's lying around on the floor and he's walking around the house. And that's how, yes, you can. So flea control on and tick control and tick areas for the cats is important. And you know, some cats like to go out on a harness, or you may take them outside in the backyard or allow them in your backyard, and that's fine. You know, they can be safe out there. You know, you've provided for their safety, but they may pick those up as well.
As we wrap up here in the last couple of minutes, to cat owners out there, or those that are interested in bringing a kitten and a cat into your home, the best advice you could give them, you know, as a dog owner, you would take your dog every year to get their rabies shots, their vaccinations. But as you talked about early in this interview, there's really not a schedule. So what can you say to kind of wrap up everything that we've talked about today?
The best for your cat is to take them in yearly for a wellness exam. Then discuss with your veterinarian according to the lifestyle of your cat. You know, is he inside, outside, inside only? What is the best, like core vaccinations, nutrition, what's their weight, etc. Now, a lot of cats hate going to the vet, so a quick tip. Leave your carrier in the living area of your home and feed your cat in it. So it's easy to load them in the carrier. A lot of people don't like taking their cat to the vet because that's the only time the cat gets out of the house, and so when that carrier comes out, they're upset. If they really hate the carrier, you can take a little pillowcase like this, and you just open it up, and we slip it right over Mr. Ranger here, and then he can go to the vet this way, and it's a lot easier on him. And if he's not as stressed coming into the vet,
he's not stressed at all.
I've told this to a lot of clients. Anyway, if he's not as upset coming into the vet, it makes the whole vet exam easier. Many veterinarians are starting to do low stress handling techniques. We do that only at my clinic, and we're becoming one of the first certified low stress handling clinics in the area. And so we give rewards. We use the pheromone spray. If your cat's really, really upset, we'll send you home with some anti-anxiety supplement to use ahead of time, and that makes it good for the cat.
All right. Well, Dr. Foote and Ranger, thank you both for joining us today. Some very useful information, and we thank all of our viewers out there for joining us on this episode of the Paw Report. A Florida couple says they caught an uninvited guest swimming in their pool before daylight recently. After hearing a noise, the couple discovered an 8-foot alligator was the culprit.
Sharon Benty thought the noise she was hearing just after 4 a.m. Thursday morning was a thunderstorm blowing chairs around her screened-in porch.
So when I came out to the patio to explore, I saw something that's not usually in the pool, along with the little floaty, and it turned out to be an 8-foot alligator.
She was shocked to discover the pool crasher and said she only had one thought on her mind when she spotted the gator.
Can I get back to the door without it seeing me, or realizing I'm bait?
Benty went right inside and woke up her husband, John.
And said, "We have a gator in our pool," to me. And of course, I didn't know what she was talking about. I was still half sleeping.
The gator ended up in the couple's pool after crashing through a section of screen.
And he was just swimming around in circles. He tried to get up here for a while. I think he was a little intimidated with everybody watching, too.
The Bentys called the sheriff's department, who notified a trapper to remove the 8-foot, 3.5-inch gator.
It was quite an evening. Quite an evening.
And an experience they hope is once in a lifetime.
I'm sure there's other alligators. I'm sure I'm going to be sleeping with my, well, at least one eye open for a while.
And it turned out we just had a few screens that need repairing, and it's a great story, it's a fun story, and hopefully it just won't happen again.
Production for the Paw Report is made possible by Inyart Tire and Auto Center in Charleston and Mattoon. Inyart offers complete auto repair. Inyart Tire and Auto Center cares about our community and thanks you for being a responsible pet owner. More information at inyart.com.